If you're wondering what it's like to live in the fourth best city in the United States for families, then this video is exactly what you're looking for. I'm going to go over what it's like to live in Columbia, Maryland, and I'm not leaving anything on the table here. This is going to be the most comprehensive and up-to-date guide on living in Columbia on YouTube. So make sure to stick around to the end so you don't miss any of the most important details. Hey everyone, my name is Eddie Brady with Showcase Real Estate here in Maryland, and if this is your first time visiting the channel, thank you for being here. I make videos like this every single week about the best places to live in Maryland, the market updates, and what you should know before moving here. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And Columbia is really like no other city in Maryland, and to really understand Columbia, you have to go all the way back to 1961, when James Rouse, a renowned real estate developer and urban planner, was searching for a large piece of land to build his most ambitious project yet, a new town that would represent the next America. And while he was searching for that much larger piece of land, he found a small tract down in Baltimore, right by I-83, where he developed the Cross Keys community. And this is where he tested out his ideas on a small scale, but it was nothing compared to the massive dream he had for this big future city. Then in 1962, Rouse and his company purchased their first 1,000 acres of land, and over the next year began an aggressive and very secretive land acquisition and ended up buying over 14,000 acres of land, and then went to Howard County and unveiled their master plan to build Columbia, Maryland. And Rouse had four main goals for Columbia, Maryland. The first goal was to build a complete city, and he's quoted saying, "There will be business and industry to establish a sound economic base, roughly 30,000 houses and apartments at rents and prices to match the income of all who work there. Provision has been made for schools and churches, for a library, college, hospital, concert halls, theaters, restaurants, hotels, offices, and department stores. Like any real city of 100,000, Columbia will be economically diverse, polycultural, multi-faith, and interracial." And his second goal was to respect the land. Rouse believed strongly that there should be a strong infusion of nature throughout a network of towns, that people should be able to feel the spaces of nature, all as part of their everyday life. His third goal was to provide for the growth of people. He believed that the ultimate test of civilization is whether or not it contributes to the growth and the improvement of mankind. And the fourth goal was to make a profit so that other companies would have the encouragement to develop towns just like Columbia. And just over 60 years later, we see Columbia, Maryland just as Rouse had intended it. With over 105,000 residents, it really is the second largest city in Maryland. Okay, so enough history. What should you know about living in present-day Columbia? Well, first let's kick it off with its ideal location. Columbia is located in Howard County, Maryland, situated between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. It sits on major commuter routes like I-95, which, if you're not from the East Coast, is the longest north-south interstate in the country, spanning from Miami, Florida, all the way up to the border of Maine and Canada. I-95 is also the largest highway between Baltimore and Washington, D.C., so if you need to commute to either of those places, having that right near your hometown is really convenient, and that's not even the only major highway system in the area. It also sits right on top of Route 29, which can also take you down to DC, or north up to I-70, which is the major highway that'll take you nearly all the way across the country. And on the southern end of Columbia, you have Route 32, which is a major commuter route to places like Fort Meade, or almost all the way down to Annapolis, which is the Maryland capital. So if you want to be in the middle of it all and have a ton of options for commuting to work, Columbia is probably the perfect location for you. So what's it like actually living here? Well, I had the opportunity of living right near Columbia for well over a decade of my life, and I spent a majority of that time exploring this city and all it has to offer. And one thing I'll say that you notice as soon as you drive into Columbia is that all of the stores and houses and shopping centers are hidden. They're like hidden in the trees and hidden below hills, and that's an intentional thing that was a part of the design in Columbia. And that's exactly what the developer wanted. He wanted it to feel like you're in the middle of nature, all while being in the middle of everything, with over 100,000 residents nearby. And it really does feel like that. I've missed turns for gas stations because they're below road level, or there's a berm in the way, or a ton of trees, and you can't see it until you turn into the gas station. And I personally love that about Columbia, but you can decide for yourself whether or not that's a good or a bad thing. And speaking of lakes, there is so much that Columbia has to offer for those who love being outside. And just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about here, this is a view over top of my client's house, looking over Lake Elkhorn, which is one of the three largest lakes in Columbia, and it just shows how integrated these neighborhoods are with nature. You can't even see a ton of houses and streets that are hidden in the tree lines in the back of this photo. And there's also trails all around this lake, just like there are around the other two massive lakes in Columbia. The second lake is on the northern end of Columbia, and it's called Wild Lake, and it's pretty much the same size as Lake Elkhorn, and very similar in that it has houses all around the perimeter of the lake and a great walking trail all around it as well. And then you have the biggest lake in Columbia, which is called Lake Kittamaqundi at the town center of Columbia, which is a massive development that we're going to talk about in just a minute. But first, let's finish the outdoor activities. There are 19 named parks all across Columbia, and that's not including all of the smaller parks and open spaces throughout all of the major neighborhoods of Columbia. And the point here is this: if you love being outside walking, biking, and running, then Columbia is a great place to live where you'll pretty much never run out of places to go. Now for the fun stuff. What else is there to do in Columbia other than the outdoors? Well, let's start with the massive development called the Columbia Town Center. This is also known as downtown Columbia, even though it doesn't have the traditional feel of a downtown. And the town center is one of the 10 villages of Columbia, and it includes the Columbia Mall, the Lakefront, Meriwether Post Pavilion, and a brand new area called Meriwether District. The town center is a mixed-use development with commercial, retail, and residential spaces and is home to 6 residential neighborhoods. The Columbia Mall is a really popular place for people to go that live in Howard County. It has over 200 shops and dining options. It is a massive complex. It has an AMC movie theater, and they're developing around the Columbia Mall constantly. It's still developing to this day. Then you have the Lakefront, which is on the east side of the mall that you can walk to from the mall, and this is right on Lake Kittamaqundi. There's restaurants right on the lakefront. There's some commercial spaces, some residential spaces, as well as a couple of hotels, and there's a path all the way around the lake. And this lake is popular because you can rent boats here, and it's also the spot for 4th of July fireworks in Columbia. And then you have probably the biggest attraction to Columbia, which is Meriwether Post Pavilion, which is a massive concert and event venue. Other than probably FedEx Field, this is the biggest event venue and concert venue in Maryland. And the thing about the mall and the lakefront and Meriwether Post Pavilion is that they're all interconnected. They were designed so that you could walk from one to the other. And the town center became so popular that they decided to build a brand new district, or a brand new neighborhood, I should say, which is called Meriwether District. When this development is fully completed, it's going to include 2.3 million square feet of office space, 1,900 residences, 320,000 square feet of retail space, 250 hotel rooms, 60 acres of protected open space, and a color burst park, which is home to a brand new outdoor ice skating rink, which is already open, and it starts in the end of November going to the end of January. And with all that the town center has to offer, it surprisingly isn't the biggest spot in Columbia for shopping and dining. The most popular spot to go to with the most options is actually on a road called Snowden River Parkway. And there is so much on this one corridor that I really cannot name it all. There are too many stores, too many shops, too many businesses to name. I mean, hundreds. So pretty much everything you could need is here. And that's what you should take away from this, whether it's a hardware store like Home Depot, or a grocery store, or medical offices, or businesses, or government contractors. All of it is right here off the Snowden River Parkway. So whatever you need in Columbia, you do not have to leave. It's all right there. All right, so let's recap real quick before we go into the last 2 important things about Columbia. We have a city that is ideally located on major commuter routes, but feels like you're in the middle of nature, but at the same time has pretty much all of the shopping, dining, and services you could possibly need. So you're probably thinking that's all this city could have to offer. It can't have more than that. That would be too much. And that's where you're wrong. Because Columbia, Maryland, remember, is located in Howard County, which has one of the best school districts in the entire country. Niche.com ranks it as the 3rd best public school system in the entire nation. But there's an important thing to note here, and that's that there are multiple high schools districted in Columbia, with it being such a large city, and not all of them are built equally. So the important thing to note here is to check the school districting maps. All of them have different rankings, different strengths, different weaknesses, and that's up to you to determine which one best fits you and your needs. All right, so the last and probably most important thing to talk about is the real estate market if you're looking to move here. And the first thing to talk about with the real estate market isn't the houses themselves, but the Columbia Association, which runs all of the neighborhoods, or villages, I should say, in Columbia. And you need to listen to this because so many people that move to Columbia are surprised by how this works. So the Columbia Association covers 10 villages, with one of those actually being outside of Columbia in Clarksville, Maryland. But All of these are run by their own individual HOAs. And each village association elects its own board of directors, and one of those directors goes on the Columbia Association board of directors, so there's a representative from each of the 10 villages. And the surprise that most buyers get hit with at the closing table is that they don't just have an HOA fee, they also have a Columbia Association fee known as a CPRA fee. And this is based on the tax assessment value of your home. And the rate for this is 68 cents for every $100 of 50% of your state assessed property valuation. So if your home is assessed by the state at $400,000, the Columbia Association's annual charge would be based on $200,000 in assessed value, which would add up to $1,360 a year or $113 a month. Now, this doesn't seem all that bad if you know about it. I mean, $113 a month overall is not that big of a deal, but when you get surprised with that $1,300 fee at the closing table, it is a big deal. And unfortunately, not a lot of people know about it. Not a lot of listings share that very openly in the description, or they might not even know about it because they don't work in Columbia often enough. But you need to know this if you're going to move here. And if you do, you'll be well prepared for it. And I think the fee is well worth it. And here's just some of what that Columbia Association fee goes towards: maintaining Columbia's 3,600 acres of open space and over 100 miles of pathways, maintaining fitness facilities, golf clubs, tennis and basketball courts, and swimming pools, organizing free summer concerts and films at the downtown Columbia lakefront, operating the Columbia Ice Rink, the Columbia Horse Center, Columbia Sports Park and Skate Park, and Columbia Dog Park, providing free summer camps, operating the Columbia Art Center, Youth and Teen Center at the Barn, the Columbia Archives, and providing before and after school care to Howard County students. That is a lot that's included in that yearly fee. And then if you're curious, well, what does my HOA do for me? Well, they're in charge of enforcing covenants, hosting individual village events, and partnering with other villages for Columbia-wide special events. They offer free classes and camps and lectures. They work with village merchants. They communicate with residents via newsletters, websites, and social media. And they encourage neighbor-to-neighbor connectivity with block parties and beautification grants. And they also are in charge of block captains. And the Columbia Association also offers a ton of amenities in Columbia. And even though most of them require memberships, due to you paying the CPRA fee, they're pretty reasonable. Here's just an example of what you can get with one of their more comprehensive memberships. You have access to 3 fitness clubs across Columbia, 2 golf courses, 23 outdoor swimming pools, that's crazy, a Columbia Swim Center, which is an indoor swim center, 5 tennis and pickleball facilities, Columbia Ice Rink, the Columbia Sports Park, and you get complimentary monthly guest pass. All right, so let's assume you want to live here. Let's wrap this up with the real estate market and what you're going to have to pay to move here. There are a ton of different options of where you can live in Columbia, from condos to townhouses to single-family detached homes. If you're looking for a condo in Columbia, they range from the mid-100s up to right around $500,000 with a median price point of $239,000, which compared to the surrounding area is pretty reasonable. But one thing to keep in mind here is that most of the condos in Columbia were built in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, so if they haven't already been renovated, expect to have to do that when you move in. And if you're looking for a townhouse in Columbia, they range from the mid-200,000s up to the high 700,000s with a median price point of $410,000. And these were also built in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but there is a good handful of them that were built after the year 2000, so there are options pretty much all across the spectrum for townhouses. And if you're looking for a single-family detached home in Columbia, they start in the low 400s and go up to just over $1 million with a median price point right now of $610,000. And one last thing to know about the houses in Columbia is that because of the time they were built and the idea that Rouse had in mind for being so integrated with nature, so many of them are contemporary style homes that have natural earth tones. And a lot of homes in Columbia have that dark brown color to them. So if you don't like that, a lot of places don't allow you to change it. So it may be a deal killer for you, but so many people that moved to Columbia do it because they love these styles of homes. And if that's you and you're considering moving to Columbia or any of the surrounding areas, reach out to me. I would be happy to help you with your move. My information is listed below. You can also reach out to me and schedule a one-on-one consultation at the link in the description or in the comments below. I will be happy to get a plan together for you and your move. And if you currently live in Columbia or have lived here before, make sure to leave a comment below of what you like about living here. What did we miss? What should everyone know about living in Columbia? It helps everyone determine whether or not they should move here. And as always, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe so you stay up to date on all of my videos about moving to Maryland.